Hi guys, Goofy here, and today I'm here with some good news for you. That news is we are doing a if you were doing a Stormweaver cast on Freeze character, all hope is not lost, and we are not out of the game yet. Now, I was hoping to get this video out the night before last, or maybe last night at the very latest, but work has been super crazy, and I do not want to release something that was not properly tested. Nothing is worse than showing something, saying, hey, you can do this, people respect, pay gold, pay money, switch gear, like whatever, and it absolutely doesn't work or something change it. Like, it feels terrible. So if you're like me and you saw the Nerf patch a couple days ago, you saw all the much deserved and salty tears of the cast on freeze players. My tears were definitely among them. And of course, the endless amount of Reddit posts and memes that were pretty funny, but also kind of felt a little bad. And you got that sinking feeling in your gut saying, great, now what? Now, don't get me wrong. I plan on playing a ton of characters and testing a ton of things in the beta. I'm having a pretty good time, even though there's 100 things that need to be fixed or changed or tweaked. And I plan on doing a whole bunch of new characters, stuff like that, but I don't want to be forced into doing a new character. Or, hey, you were doing this build on this character, now gone, sorry, like time to go re-roll and do another 50-hour campaign, okay? Um, I don't want to be forced into it. I want to be able to pick that myself and like, hey, I want to try something new. I'm going to redo a new character. Now, I rather enjoyed the campaign, even though it was rather long and other stuff, but that's not really the point of this video. I'll get into that another time. Um, so all this video is saying is basically like there are things out there and all hope is not lost and you don't have to kill your character and here's where we're at, okay? The idea of respecking and the gold costs and even besides for the gold costs and the gear, you have all these skill gems and if the skill gems you put jeweler's orbs on and maybe some greater jeweler's orbs and they're like 20 exalt each almost and like you're not going to get any of that back and they're now going to be on skills that don't work or were nerfed and like it's going to feel terrible. So like besides re-rolling, what's your option, right? So a lot of people are probably just going to throw away and be like, okay, I'm just going to stop PoE2 for now for a while or whatever the case is. Anyway, your character, if you're doing a Stormweaver, is still fine and it's not gone. Now, I don't want this to be a bait video, so I will explain in detail what this is. The cast on freeze, how it was, is definitely gone, but there are still plenty of options left, okay? I've tested a whole bunch of stuff, and I came to a conclusion that I myself was happy with. There's definitely other builds, other options, other skills. One notable mention is I know Captain Lance is doing a Spark CI Archmage, Orb of Storms, so on and so forth. Like, and his character is going pretty great. He's definitely been able to play a lot more than I have. The build that I landed on myself was still a mostly cold-based cast on freeze, elemental storm, cold lightning, so on and so forth. Now remember, this is not a full build guide. I would love to do one at some point, but there's still 100 things I'm testing. My gear still isn't great. My playtime is still not huge. I'm only into like T4, T5 maps myself. I haven't explored a lot of the end game. I built my character like a complete noob, and I literally have 0 defenses straight across the board. It hasn't really been an issue yet. I'm only level 76. And again, I'm only at tier 4 or 5 maps, so take that with a grain of salt, but like I'm playing perfectly fine. I don't really have issues. I'm sure I will definitely have survivability issues in the future, so there's a bunch of things that I want to test and change and stuff like that. So again, this is not an endgame build guide. This is just, hey, like you can still do at least low tier maps perfectly fine. I know a couple people who are doing Elemental Storm and they're blasting through reds just fine. This being able to push is more an issue with me and how I built my character and put in literally 0 defenses and 0 block and all my energy shield is converted to mana, so I literally just have life. But I want to go over the things that happened real quick and give you guys at least the option if it's something that you want to try and do. It's pretty fun. I have a little bit of gameplay I can show you. So I want to go over the basics real quick. The very first thing is cast on freeze, what happened, why was nerf, and what does this mean, and how you can mostly salvage it. Now again, the build that it was before is gone. You have to remember that. This is not like, hey, it works fine, it works normal, whatever. The gem itself, here's what changed, okay? Cast and freeze, you used to have maximum energy that was based on the thing. It's kind of hard reading the gem to, like, I had to read it, like, 100 times to, like, figure out exactly what it did. Casting and freezing enemies gave you, like, 100 energy. Your maximum was whatever. So basically, the old gameplay footage was you came across mobs, you literally cast, you froze them one time the second you hit them, and a bunch of comets fell down and hit them, and you could literally get with Spell Echo, you would literally comment, like all over the screen. Now, personally, I don't think the build was that crazy overpowered. Maybe a little tweaking, maybe whatever. The takeaway from what they did was they basically took it outside, put it behind the shed, and shot it in the head. Right, like 95% of the was completely nerfed. Okay, now here's the two big changes that you need to do to salvage your cast on freeze. Now, again, this will not be like it was before, but it definitely is not as bad. You get your cast on freeze. First, you have to swap one of the gems. Most people were already running impetus, probably impetus, where supported skills gain 40% increased energy. Now, this is your modifier. This number also goes up the higher your gem level is. Mine is only a gem level 16. Most of my gems are gem level 15 or 14 even. This one's 16, this one's 15, this one's 15, so on and so forth. Like, I think this is actually my highest gem in level 16. It definitely, you get more energy as it levels up. It's not qualityed up. I don't have quality on it, which is more increased energy gained, okay? Now, the way they changed it is it's based on the rarity of the mob you hit, okay? You hit a normal mob, you get, like, less amount of energy. You hit a magic, you get, it's times the ratio, which I think is 1, 2, and 3. Basically, the TLDR, without going into any of this information and how it goes, cast on freeze works nearly perfectly fine for any kind of boss damage, single target damage, rares, and most magic packs. It goes off constantly all the time, and it does a crap load of damage, okay? So, cast on freeze is still honestly very strong. Now, it is not going to be your full clear and single target skill and one button, boom, cover everything, but it is still going to go off an insane amount of times. The other change you had to do was pick up these on the tree. Most people already had this, where it recovered a little bit of mana and trigger spells did more. Now you have to take these 4 nodes as well, okay? Increased energy, increased energy, increased energy, and then 25% chance for trigger skills to refund half of the energy spent, along with this latest support gem, where skills triggered by supported meta skills have 35% chance to refund half of their energy costs. So basically, this gives the skill 60% chance that when it goes off, that it will retain half of that energy, which you now need 300. And the energy gain modifier is at 112. So I'll show you gameplay in a minute here and what that actually means. But basically, if you pick up, I just exited off of it. If you pick up these extra nodes, these 4 nodes, and you 5-link, or you can totally pull out, have Comet, Spell Echo. You can pull out Spell Echo for now if you want. If you don't have a 5-link, you could do the little corrupting method, which you can look up. I won't go into huge detail to get a 5-link without quality on this. But for a 5th one, you definitely want to have these 2 energy ones. Maybe you take out this one for now, but you should definitely try to get at least these 5. It's a huge setup for it. Now, I'm going to throw you some gameplay right after I go over the other part. Elemental Storm is basically the other part of it. So most people used Frostbolt. They usually have the Arcane Surge path. And you basically just cast Frostbolts, and Comet and Cast on Freeze would literally take care of everything. Some people had Frostwall. I had Cold Snap on, and I just never cast it because I never needed it. So I literally, after like days, I just took it off. Basically, what happens now is the single target is still fine. Comet still goes off. If you hit a whole bunch of normal mobs, it still definitely shoots and goes off. It definitely helps a good amount, especially for a normal, like, 60 reservation. Like, I honestly think it's still perfectly fine. It's definitely not like it was, but it's definitely still really good for the build. So the big issue now was, like, clear. Like, how do you clear the trash packs? What do you do? Whatever. The part that I ended up with was going back to what I initially started with when the game started, which was trying Elemental Storm. Now, Elemental Storm, I'm going to go into quick detail a little bit on like how it actually works, and then I'll show you a little gameplay to show you how the thing, how it plays in like maps and stuff like that. And again, remember, caveat: my character is definitely not geared properly and spec'd properly, and then I'll go over the gems and all that stuff real quick. But Elemental Storm basically works where it grants you the skill. What I don't understand about the skill at all is the first time I went it definitely was like a normal gem and it had 3 links. I did not 5 link this. I don't know how I got the 5th links. I don't know if it's based on level. I have a whole bunch of plus levels on my gear. So it's a 17 gem and then it gets plus 9. I don't know where that came from after the respec. I don't know if it's a bug. I don't know if it's just a normal skill and then these are technically supposed to be like jeweler orbed. I honestly have no idea. I don't know how to level this skill, honestly. Like you can't like if I find a level 18 gem, I don't know how to up this. I'll have to look into it more. I don't really understand that part of it yet. Okay, but basically what happens is it gives you access to this skill. I'll go over the gems in a second. You basically crit. You trigger Elemental Storm on crit hit with spells, and then we have this one, which basically gives it increased cooldown recovery, so they can go off a lot more. Everlasting Gaze is actually what the Guildie just linked, is actually the amulet that I want to pick up and try for this build, but again, we'll get into that later. So you get Elemental Storm. Elemental Storm is actually pretty awesome when you put support gems in it. It goes off constantly. The cooldown recovery helps. Now you can spec into other things in the tree, which I haven't done a lot yet, to increase the AoE, increase skill effect, so on and so forth. It's pretty good for clearing. It does not crit, but it hinders enemies by default. It freezes them, it shocks them, like it's an awesome standalone, and it goes off constantly. So it's not rare to have like 3 or 4 elemental storms on the thing, and it goes off when you crit. Right now, my crit, I put in Eye of Winter to cast it, which we'll go over with again in a little bit. At the moment, my Eye of Winter only has a 34% crit chance, and it's only a 4 link. So after you put in Chain, you can put in another. There's another one that actually adds crit. I'd still have to swap and test a bunch of things. I definitely have a lot more passive points on the tree. I want to get into, again, we'll go over passives later, but I want to get a bunch of crit nodes over here. I want to path over here and get some more cred, another jewel socket. A couple of my jewels are pretty crap, like they're just freeze build up and spell damage. There's a lot that still has to be tested out. But for the skill itself, it's pretty good. We have right now persistence, which just makes it last longer. Okay, we have considered casting, which is not attached to cast speed. Right, it's a trigger, so the cast speed does not matter at all. So this basically just gives it more damage. Magnified effect, which just increases the AoE, which is good. I would actually like to get the AoE even bigger. And then Controlled Destruction, it already does not crit as a skill. It's written right in the thing. It deals damage every 0.25 seconds. It tells you what the radius is. The duration is 5 seconds, even though it lasts longer. And there's 3 different ones that can go off. We don't really do fire damage at all, so it's never going to go off. But since we are using Archmage, Cold and Lightning both go off, even though most of them are usually cold. But it does not deal crit. Cannot deal critical hits, so Controlled Destruction is another no-brainer. The downside is you cannot do crit, but it doesn't do crit anyway, so it just gives 30% more damage. As a 6th link, I don't even know yet. I'll throw something in, whether it's more crit, more AoE, more like I have no idea yet. We ignore the fire one, lightning and cold. There's some cold. It might actually be. Might run exposure and I don't know. There's a whole bunch. Still testing it out. But that's the idea of Elemental Storm. Basically, we use Eye of Winter. We'll go over the skill gems in a minute here. Basically, more cast speed. We have Pierce, and then we have an Inspiration, just because we're constantly spamming and casting it, and mana costs can get tricky. Every time the Elemental Storm goes off, it casts mana. Every time your cast on freeze goes off, it casts mana. So when you get a huge burst and a bunch of stuff goes off, it does eat a good chunk of mana. Having a nice mana flask and obviously a lot of regen and recovery and stuff like that definitely helps. And then we obviously have Archmage on, which again I'll go over later, but adds a whole bunch of extra damage to us. So we basically get almost 2,000 mana. We basically have our entire amount of damage doubled and does lightning as well as cold. So pull up a quick gameplay video here, Now, this usually messes up all the time, so hopefully it doesn't, but this will give you an idea of the build. This is just a random map. Basically, character is going to walk around and constantly cast Eye of Winter. Mana is pretty good. It's going to crit. It does a decent amount of damage itself. Eye of Winter is pretty good, shoots projectiles out, but it's going to spawn these little storms that you see. Can't see my little mouse down here because I used the big pink one in game. But it's going to spawn these little storms that you see, and the storms are going to freeze, they're going to shock, they're going to not crit, but they're going to slow enemies, and basically the storm goes off, everything's frozen, and it's going to sit there and constantly tick damage. Now you can watch the cast on freeze go off too, whether it's normal mobs, whether it's whatever, you can watch the energy tick up in the corner up here. And a lot of the times that it goes off, it has a 60% chance to retain half the energy that it has. So it'll go off a decent amount on clear. It'll go off much more frequently on rares and bosses, which is what really counts and what really matters anyway. My character is not super fast, so again, you can definitely go faster than this, but this is more like a gear level play skill gem issue than an actual issue with the build. Single target is absolutely ridiculous and has always been, even besides for the elemental storms, which do a significant amount of damage themselves. The cast on freeze comet does a crap ton. Frost wall, if you used it, does a crap ton. Most rares and stuff, I can literally throw 1, 2, or 3 frost wall and the entire rare blows up anyway. It does a crap load of damage. You can self-cast Comet as well on Unleash, and it does a crap load of damage. On top of Eye of Winter and Storm, like, damage is not the issue with any of this. So as you can see, that's basically it for the play. There was no boss in this map or anything. I just wanted to show you a very quick, like, how the build plays, how the storms pop out, so on and so forth. The things that I definitely still want to work on, I need to work on my defenses. I have Archmage and Spirit and stuff, like, going on with that. I'll go over the gems in a minute. But the damage is great. The clear is fine. I definitely need to pick up the speed a little bit. PoE 2 is definitely a little bit slower of a build, but you can still usually blast through the mobs, and the more crit that I get, the more storms I'll do, the more you'll be able to cast and move on, and you won't have to cast 2-3 times. That's just an issue now, so to speak, with the gear and the cred and all the stuff that I have available to me now. Okay? So I won't go over the skill gems. I won't make this video super too long. Basically, we have our main, how it starts. We have our Eye of Winter. Okay? We cast it. It has, don't forget too, it shoots all the projectiles out, and it inflicts critical weakness on hit, which means the more you cast, the more they get hit, the more susceptible to crit that they are. Crit is definitely one of the things I want to increase. It will spawn a lot more storms, so on and so forth. I want to throw chain in here as soon as I get a 5th link, and then the projectiles will chain between the enemies, meaning they give more hits, meaning they give more crits, which means even more storms should go off. I have Arcane Tempo just to cast, like, even more. Without it, you cast a little bit slower, which is fine. Pierce is definitely almost required, just so the projectiles go through the enemies and they don't hit one enemy and stop. It definitely does a lot more damage and lets you get a lot more storms out. And then I have Inspiration just for cost. So Eye of Winter is not exactly like a damaging ability, although it does do an okay amount of damage on itself. You basically use it just to freeze and to proc elemental storms, okay? Frost Bomb, if you've obviously used it as a cast and freeze character already, I just have Frost Bomb. Strip Away, just for exposure, has increased effect. I have Glaciation just for more freeze buildup. It's not really super needed. It was more like this was on my Frostbolt gem, and I just had it, so I just threw it on Frost Bomb because I don't have a whole lot of others on here. And then Cold Penetration was just something. Basically, I throw it just for the exposure. And I throw it out. It helps on uniques. It does an okay amount of damage itself too. It's definitely not a shabby amount of damage on here. Literally 14,766 on a 4-link at level 76 is definitely not bad at all. Frost Wall is a huge one, okay? This is more for single target. You can totally use it to block paths and stuff too. If you're about to get swarmed, if there's something you want to like, there's so many pesky ranged mobs in the game and shit, it's so easy to throw a frost wall to block the path and then blast over top of the wall yourself. Frost wall is so underutilized by so many players, at least from what I've seen, like friends in the guild, so on and so forth, especially those pesky super linear, like tight maps where you have to go down a corridor and you like walk down the thing and you get 18 projectiles that shoot at your face and you fall over. Well, you literally just boom, throw down a frost wall, and then you block the whole path, and then you just sit here and be like, okay, now you die, and I'm sitting here safe behind my walls. Super great skill and does a crap ton of damage. We have Conch Effect to narrow it down. Spell Cascade, just so 3 of them go off. It helps block the path more, and it helps overlap the crystals a lot. And then we have the Elemental Focus, because we're not really looking for Frostwall itself to actually freeze or chill or anything like that. The next gem I want to put in here is actually in my stash. It gives the crystals less life. Icicle. Ice crystals created by support skills has 50% less life. I also have this node on the tree for reduced ice crystal life, and that is basically for when you get big bosses or rares or whatever. You can stack up these frost walls, which do a crap load of damage already, and then you throw your self-cast comment on top of it, and all the crystals should blow up. The problem is the higher the gem level gets, the more life they have, so without having that support gem, you cast them out, and you throw your comet, and you try to blow them up, and some of them blow up, and some of them take damage, and some of them don't. Like, they have too much life right now, so most of them just disappear and go away. Hopefully that gem will help a lot more with it. Right now, it has maximum life 8,773. I don't know if that's, again, per crystal, per whatever. My self-cast comet, even on a 3-link, has 28,000, so, again, maybe it's a res thing, maybe it's bugged, maybe I don't understand all the mechanics, but if there's got 8,000 life and I throw 28,000 on top, you can see some of them shattered, some of them didn't. I don't know. Again, hopefully the gem will help. I'll test it out and see how it goes. We have our self-cast Comet here. There's another link I have to throw in. I basically have Comet and Unleash are the big ones. You barely cast this. You don't cast a lot. Usually Frostwall, your cast on Freeze Comet, your Eye of Winter, the Elemental Storms, usually they kill all the rares, they kill the bosses, they care like usually you don't even have to. If the good thing about Self-Cast Comet is if you see mobs like all the way to the corner of the screen, your Comet will reach them from where you are, so you can blast them, right? Or you can hit rares or whatever, and if the Storm didn't trigger or whatever, you can Frostwall them in, and then you can throw a Comet on top, and it completely obliterates them. I would definitely throw a Frost Bomb first, too, by the way. Frost Bomb first on the rares, magics, boss, whatever. Then you Frostwall, then you Comet on top of them, and then obviously you can spam Eye of Winter constantly to spawn storms and stuff, too. It's pretty good combo. It's pretty easy to understand once you get going and playing it. I have Cold Mastery on here just for a +1 to the gem. Honestly, gems is another thing. They're super interchangeable. You can change things however you want. I was actually going to do a couple other things on this. This is your self-cast Comet. I really wanted to put Hourglass on here, but it adds 10 seconds to the cooldown, and it kind of messes up Unleash. So I have to test that a little bit more if it just adds 10 seconds to each tick charge. I think it messed it up. I have so many gems in here. So I think actually when you put it in, it stops Unleash from working. So you can see it works. Then when you click this in, Unleash actually goes away. So the 10-second cooldown timer that you added, and I really wanted to use this, we don't really care about the extra 10 seconds because we don't cast this very often. So if we have one time that we cast it and it's super crazy huge DPS, that's great. But I didn't want to lose Unleash. Now we can take this in and not use Unleash, and we can cast one Comet. Like, I haven't tested it out. Technically it's more damage, but if you get If you get 3 comets doing 28,000 instead of 1 comet doing 40, well, then 3 comets is going to win, in my opinion. So, again, we'll have to test it out. Now, again, another caveat I want to throw out is you can see this on some of them. Let me pick. What's a good one? I mean, look at all the gems still. So this is cast on freeze, and these are recommended gems, and others. There is a crap ton of gems still coming, and these are just the recommended ones coming soon, coming soon, coming soon. I don't know if these are picks. I don't know. Again, I don't know enough about the beta. I'm assuming there's a whole bunch more support gems coming. Maybe this just means that the default, like, hey, we're going, like, we just haven't selected all the best recommended gems yet. I don't know. I assume it means that there's more support gems coming. Even if there's not a crap load more that they add in, they will make like more as they go. And again, this is just a beta, right? Like, things are going to be unbalanced. If they find out they need new gems or more gems or whatever, I'm sure they will add them in. Once I get more links and more jeweler orbs, I'll worry about all the other stuff. So that's just the self cast comment right now. Cast on freeze, again, I already went over it. You have your cast on freeze, you have comet, and you have spell echo. Those are like you're almost guaranteed that's what you need. I would definitely put the energy gems next, and I feel like this is the most important setup because, again, as I showed in the video, cast on freeze still does go off a bunch. The higher level this gets, the higher quality this gets, the more energy you get. The refund super helps. When it goes off 60% of the time, it retains 50% of its energy. It definitely goes off a lot, and it still does an absolute crap load of damage. You actually go to this. My Comet is level 16 and then has +9 from modifiers, and it is literally at almost 40,000 damage. And then that's doubled because it's Spell Echo, right? And then the last thing I have right now is Archmage. Archmage gives a whole bunch of extra damage as extra lightning. Basically, without this, you can see if I turn it off, it has a big reservation cost, and it definitely increases mana costs. But if we look at like our cast on freeze one right here, which is almost like 40,000, we turn off Archmage, and then we go to it, we're at 24,000. It is a massive, huge amount of damage. Now, because of Archmage, it eats up a lot of spirit. You definitely need a spirit roll on your amulet or on your armor. I'm hoping actually to get a slightly bigger spirit roll on my armor because I want to switch the amulet to the unique one that they're talking about in my guild right now. And then I will probably drop Arctic Armor, period. I don't think this does a whole lot, to be perfectly honest. It helped early on during the campaign and shit like crazy. Now it doesn't really do much unless you're hit, and usually you're not really hit. And if you are hit, it's usually by projectiles. So it kind of gives you a barrier, and then like melee attacks hit and remove the barrier and make them do cold damage. Now if you AFK and you like look to the side, or you're playing with the cat, which mine is trying to get me to play with her right now. Say hi, baby. Say hi. It's my kitty. Just my kitties. And you turn to the side and a monster smacks you and, walks over from 17 screens away and like blasted. Well, that's like Arctic Armor is awesome. It probably just saved your life. Like, it usually freezes them, and then your cast on freeze comet usually goes off and he gets blown into a million pieces, and you say, great, I'm me AFKing or reading something or watching a YouTube video or looking at what the cat's playing with to the side or whatever. It usually saved your life. Besides that, after the campaign and stuff, it's really not used a whole hell of a lot. So right now it's kind of just reserving mana. So there's still a lot of things to test, still a lot of things, whatever. But that is basically the TLDR of the build. I'll go over the passive tree super quick here, even though this is far from a finished product. You only really need these 4 ascendancy points to start. Then I would definitely get Arcane Surge. The cast speed means very, very little to us, although it does help with the Comet a little bit. It's mostly just for the more mana regen multiplier to what your mana regen already is. At the moment, this will get a lot higher. But at the moment, I recover 280 mana per second with some more recovery, some more points, with the increased effect per 15 max mana and stacking a lot more mana in ES on my gear. This will get much, much higher, which will give you even more damage, more mana regen, more arcane surge effect, so on and so forth. Plus, I don't have my last ascendancy for this at all. I actually just got my third ascendancy from this build. Even on the cast on freeze comet build, I probably bricked 6 different 3-floor sanctums. With the combination of this build and the respec, the storms, which keep everything frozen and like it's super good, and some honor resist relics, I absolutely dominated my 3-floor sanctum. I had so many boons, and I finished literally with almost complete maximum honor, and I literally almost one-shot all of the bosses. Like, it was super easy going. My reses I try to keep capped as much as possible. Again, I'm only level 76. I got about 2k life, a bit less. The amulet that I definitely want to test, I can link it because he got it in game. This actually rolls 20 to 30% of max mana as max ES and gives a crap ton of mana regen and some mana on top of it. Basically, what happens is, I think it applies to your nodes too, but we take Eldritch Battery here on the thing, which I probably did way too early in the campaign because it converts all of your energy shield to mana. So it gives you a whole bunch more mana. I don't want to respec this node now, but without the mana, my mana literally goes down to like 12 or 1300. And this can be scaled a lot more because my ES rolls on my gear are not super crazy, which I will go over in a second. But anyway, we basically have that. But if you get that amulet, I'd obviously want a much higher roll, but the max mana as max ES actually takes place after Eldritch Battery converts it all to mana. So you take Eldritch Battery, it converts it all to mana, and then you actually get 30% or up to 30% of your max mana as max ES, so you get thousands more, well, I guess 30% of whatever your mana is. Once my mana goes up to probably easily 3k plus, I know Captain Lance actually 4k plus, but he also has some ES nodes and some other stuff on the tree. The ES on my gear is not great by any means. My gear is not great by any means. This is only 248 ES, and there's literally a single T5 energy shield roll on it. Like, you can literally get armor like 700 plus, 800 plus. Same thing with like geared like this. This is 110 ES on the boots. It has life, res, like there's not a whole much. My gear is far from being crazy. I've not spent a lot. My wand I'm pretty happy with, but again, was not anything super, super crazy. A little bit of cast speed, a little bit of spell damage, a little bit of mana. Like, this gear can get way, way, way better, right? This has a bunch of mana, a bunch of skills. This is the amulet I'm rolling right now, which is pretty great. At first, I thought I needed the spirit. I actually think I'm going to drop for the other one. Again, we'll have to see. The build still has a long way to go. Anyway, for the passive tree, we started down here. We got a bunch of spell damage nodes. You could switch these to mana regen, but I really don't think it's required. Spell damage int. We took the cold damage and freeze build up. We have some Caspi, which is mostly just a pathing, but does help a little bit for some of the other skills like Eye of Winter and stuff. And then mana regen. This I actually don't have selected just because the amulet that I bought had open mind on it. I definitely think there is a better anoint than this. There's actually a couple of them. Where were they? One is over here, Perpetual Freeze, which gives freeze duration and freeze buildup, which could be pretty cool. There's a lot of like damage and mana regen, mana recoup. I think Captain Lance actually has this one for damage you take recouped as mana, which could be super good. There's also a couple more like recoup ones on the tree. There was actually one down here. I don't even know if it works. I don't even know where it is now. There's actually a couple of them. This one gives mana on kill, which I don't think is super important because you can totally get mana on kill on a jewel, which might help. There was one down here somewhere that gave that gave like reduced mana cost of skills and mana regen or something. I don't remember where it went. It's totally interchangeable. I'm gonna try a whole bunch of things and go from there. We did path down into here, which is just some travel nodes. And I did realize this point at the moment is completely wasted because I can either go here and down or go here and over. So one of these points, I think this one should be respec because this we're actually going to spec up into Royal just for the increased AoE for the Elemental Storm, basically. We went down here for some extra lightning damage, which is basically another Archmage thing, and some chance to shock. We got some crit stuff here, which helps a little bit. This is super important for reduced mana cost of skills. We end up using a lot of mana, and our skills cost a crap ton of mana between Archmage and all the links and all the other stuff. And the more links you put in, the more mana all this stuff will cost. We do have a big mana pool, but when that stuff goes off and the Elemental Storms cost and the Cast Unfreeze Comet cost, like, it definitely adds up your mana cost. So a lot of mana regen, a lot of mana recovery. That's going to be very important for the build. We got some more freeze buildup and extra cold damage. Then we got this one just for the extra move speed, mana regen, and a bit of dex and int. Path up through here. This is just some crit stuff for the build. This we got for the mana recovery nodes. We'll have to see how our mana recovery is late game. This could totally get respect at some point. We got this for some more freeze buildup. We got these nodes, which are super important for all the cold. We got freeze buildup, freeze duration, +1 level of all cold skills, which is huge. Damage pen, cold exposure effect. We went over here for even more crit damage, stuff like that. We went down here for some more freeze buildup stuff. Cold damage is extra fire against frozen enemies. It's not a huge amount, but I guess it does give us a little fire, though I haven't seen any fire elemental storms proc. We got increased damage per max mana, which will scale a big time as our mana goes up. And then we picked up at Ether Flow, just for increased mana regeneration rate while moving, because we're moving literally like 99% of the time. Welcome to PoE 2, where you're running all the time. That's pretty much it. I'm going to spec again across here and down into these nodes here. At least that's the plan now. I'm going to pick up this for the increased area of effect for spell skills, and then I want to pick up these crit nodes, but that will take me all the way to like level 96 or something. For the jewels, this is the jewel I picked up for the build. Spell damage, cold damage, had some mana regen, which was like a bonus, and crit hit chance. My other couple jewels aren't super good, and I'll have another jewel here. We'll see how it goes. Anyway, that's where we are. The video ran a little longer than I thought, but I just wanted to throw it out there just to let you guys know that all hope is not lost, and there's still definitely some Stormweaver builds that can go on. Hope you enjoyed it. Make sure you like and subscribe, and thanks.